Good evening, everyone. It's a privilege to have you all here tonight with us. My name is Mikolo Afalabi, and I'll be your host for today's session. On behalf of the Wave, I warmly welcome you to the Wave Nation Beauty Series Inaugural Edition. We are honored to have you here with us as we gather for a moment, not just for an event, but it speaks to leadership, responsibility, and the future of our nation. To begin with, I would like to invite the Pengrad Wave License Officer to share a brief message about the Wave and what this community stands for. Please join me as I warmly welcome Mr. Iwuchukwu Chidioke. Mr. Iwuchukwu, welcome. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening, everyone.
How are you
Good
doing?
evening. I'm very well. Thank
You're
you very
good.
much.
Over to you, sir.
All right, thank you very much. Kindly confirm if you can still see or hear me.
We can
Hello,
hear
can you
you.
hear me?
We can hear you.
All right.
We can't see you though,
Okay.
but we can hear you.
I'll try to fix
We can see
that.
you now. Yeah, it's better. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Hold on briefly. Well, about the wave. Good day, distinguished guests, our esteemed keynote speaker, honorable members of the assembly, and everyone joining us. My name is Iwuchukwu Chidioke, the Pengrad Liaison Officer, and it's a privilege to speak on the Wave. The Wave is not merely an initiative, it's a deliberate system for developing people, building the nation, and powering innovation. At Pengrad, we believe that the meaningful transformation must be structured, and so the Wave is built on three core pillars. First, EFNO, which holds every Friday on the Wave, focuses on personal and career development, where individuals are equipped with the skills, discipline, and mindset required to grow and thrive. Second, the Nation Building Series, which focuses on civic responsibility, leadership, and conscious citizenship. And third, the Wave Innovation and Invention Showcase, TWIIS, which is designed to drive innovation, enterprise, and economic contribution. Together, these pillars form a pipeline that develops not just individuals, but responsible citizens and builders of the future. And today, our focus is on the second pillar, the Nation Building Series. And this platform is built on a simple but powerful belief. And the belief is that national transformation begins with personal responsibility. Now, this is a space where conversations go beyond opinions and into accountability, where leadership is not distant but personal, and where individuals are challenged to see themselves as active contributors to the progress of society. Through this series, we're bringing together voices that matter, not for noise, but for substance, not for appearance, but for impact. Because nation building is not accidental, it's intentional, it's continuous, and it requires all of us. The wave, therefore, is a call to think deeper, to act better, and to take responsibility for the future we desire. This is only the beginning, and we are honored to have you be a part of this journey. Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you so much, Mr. Chidioke, for that insightful message. Thank you so much. Really appreciate. So at this point, I would like to invite the Pengrad Wave Community Management Lead, who will introduce our keynote speaker for today. Please join me as I welcome Ms. Chioma Mirabel Nwodo. Is she there? So I think we should wait a minute for Miss Mirabel Nwodo. I am very happy to I'm very happy to be here today because I have waited for this series, Nation Building Series Inaugural Edition, where we have different people from different sector of Nigeria to talk about impactful conversation that is going to impact us, that is going to make us build public trust in Africa. It's a wonderful series, and I hope we are anticipating for the event for this conversation. Hello everyone, we are sorry for the network glitch. So now I would like to invite the community management lead, Ms. Unwodo Mirabel, to introduce the keynote speaker. Ms. Mirabel, are you there?
Yes, good evening. Please kindly confirm that you can hear me.
I can hear you, ma. How you doing?
Okay.
How was your
I'm
week?
doing I'm doing fine, thank you. What about yours?
I'm doing so well. Please can you turn on your camera, please? Turn on your camera. Thank you.
Okay, I'll do that shortly.
Yeah,
Please give me a minute.
no problem.
Okay,
Okay,
please
okay.
confirm that you can see me.
We can see you, your beautiful face. Okay, so
Okay.
over to you.
Yes, once again, good evening, everyone. Good evening. Please confirm that you can still see and hear me.
We can hear you, but we can't see you. But go ahead.
Okay, okay, sorry about that. Evening, distinguished guests, members of the Assembly, and the entire Wave community. My name is Mirabel, and I serve as the Community Management Lead for the Wave. It is a privilege to stand before you as we transition into one of the most important moments of today's gathering. At the center of every thriving nation is leadership that is intentional, structured, and accountable because public trust is not accidental. It is designed through systems, sustained through integrity, and strengthened through action. Today's keynote address speaks directly to this reality: strategic leadership and the architecture of public trust in Africa. A conversation that challenges us to rethink how leadership is built, how institutions are shaped, and how trust can be restored and sustained across our continent. To lead us into this critical conversation, we are honored to host a leader whose work sits at the intersection of entrepreneurship, public policy, and youth empowerment in Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, on this call, please join me with your favorite emojis in the comment section to welcome Honorable Remy Chukwunyere, EMBA. Honorable Remy Chukwunyere is an entrepreneur, ecosystem builder, and leadership strategist with over 2 decades of experience driving impact across Africa. He currently serves as the director for Africa at Power Africa Foundation, where he contributes to initiatives that strengthen innovation ecosystem, support founders, and expands opportunities for entrepreneurs across the continent. He previously served as the executive director of the Ugumba Leadership Center, where he led flagship initiatives such as the Ugumba Enterprise Challenge, a transformative program that has supported over 7,000 startups and built a thriving network of more than 30,000 young entrepreneurs across Africa. Earlier in his career, he served as the Director General of the Imo State Directorate for Employment, leading initiatives focused on youth employment, entrepreneurship development, and economic empowerment. He holds an executive MBA from the Quantic School of Business and Technology in the United States and an MSc in Public Governance and Leadership from the University of Abuja, Nigeria. He is also a fellow of the Swedish Institute Impact Pioneers Program and the Abuja Leadership Center. Beyond his professional accomplishments, it will interest you to know that he is a published author and a passionate advocate for leadership, mentorship, and strategic partnership as catalysts for building sustainable institutions and empowering the next generation of African entrepreneurs. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me by giving a warm welcome to our keynote speaker. Put in your favorite emojis in the comment section and join me make welcome Honorable Remy Chukwunyere. The floor is yours, sir. Thank you so much for joining us today. You can kindly speak, sir.
Okay, good evening,
Good evening, sir. You're
ladies and
welcome,
Good
sir.
evening,
gentlemen.
sir.
Very good, very good. It's a pleasure to join you this evening. Yeah, I know the audience are watching, on YouTube, and okay, yeah, I can see some of my mentees already joining. Okay, good. It's really interesting. I would have loved, an opportunity to address more the people, looking at them maybe via Zoom or Google Meet, asking questions. But now I can only see Mirabel and what's your own name? Afolabi. Is it
Milka. Yeah. Milka.
so yeah, I would have loved an opportunity to engage with them, but that's still okay. That's still okay. And again, I also want to know, how do you want this? You want me to make a presentation, or you want to ask me questions? How do you prefer it? I'm ready for anyone. So how do you want it? You want me to just speak, you ask questions, or okay, no problem. So now let me start this way. I made a presentation. I don't know if that is okay, if I can share my slide. Is that okay for you?
Yes, sir. You can share your slides, sir. No
Okay.
problem, sir.
Okay, fantastic, fantastic. Okay, fantastic. Let me share my screen. Hold down my screen, my screen. Mhm, 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 mhm. Okay. Can you see my screen? Can you see my screen now?
Not yet, sir. Not yet.
Okay. Check if you can see that. Can you see that now?
We, we can't see.
Okay. So while that is going on,
Yes,
can you see that now?
we can see that now. Yeah, I can see it, sir.
Okay, okay, very good, very good. Thank you so much. Like I said, it's a pleasure to be the keynote speaker for the maiden edition of your nation building series. It's really a great privilege for considering me. I don't know who asked you to come talk to me, who referred me to you. I don't know, but that's interesting. Um, yeah, by the grace of God, I have worked in the public sector, I've served in government, I've worked in the private sector, I've run my own organizations, I've also worked in the non-profit sector. So I am well equipped to speak on this topic, and I'm happy that yes, you have chosen to give me this opportunity. This evening, I want to provoke some of you. I want to provoke some of you because the issue of leadership has become a major concern for me and for some of us who have a different understanding, who also believe, that Nigeria and Africa should be better than where we are today. Now, let me tell you about what the late Professor Chinua Achebe said. He said that there's Nigeria, let me say Nigeria. Nigeria has no problem. Nigeria has no problem. Nigeria is endowed with natural resources, human resources, but the only problem that we have is leadership. Leadership is the only problem that we have. We have everything that we need to become better and greater than America. But why are we where we are today? Each time I go to Europe, each time I visit Europe, I cry. I cry, because I tell my friends in Europe, I tell them, I see, if we had good leaders in Nigeria, the whole of Europe combined together cannot challenge Nigeria in terms of development. In terms of development generally, I mean economic development, everything else, infrastructure and everything. If we had good leaders, there is no way we will not be competing with America, the United States of America today. Because most of those countries in Europe, they do not have natural resources. They do not have. Some of them, let me shock you, some of them, do you know what? They export timber. They export timber, and that is how they are getting revenue to run their country. Some of them, I'm sure you know Norway, they export stockfish and other whatever from their rivers, from their seas. Some of them, for example, let me tell you about UK. What do they have? They are only selling their education or educational whatever to higher education to us in Nigeria, Africa, and that's how they are making money to run their government. But if you visit them, my dear, you know that you will cry for Nigeria. You will cry for Nigeria. Nigeria that is blessed with abundant oil and gas resources. We have oil and gas in abundance. In my own village, I am from Imo State, I am from Ohajebe, my local government. We have gas, the gas deposits there is the largest in the whole of Africa. I'm talking about Imo State, Ohajiebema local government. Google it, Asa community, or Asa Awara area, Ohajiebema, the largest gas deposits you can think of in Africa. That is where it is deposited. Now we have gold, we have silver, we have everything, even coal in abundance in Nigeria. But the question I have continued to ask is, why are we where we are today? Now, as I speak to you, I am using generator. I live in Abuja, but I cannot boast of 20 hours of electricity every day. I am using generator to speak to you. If I didn't have money to buy fuel, I wouldn't be speaking to you this evening. Now, for the other lady, I think Mirabel and the other person, while at the time there were interruptions, that was because of internet. Internet, I know. Now, most times you don't even have access to internet. Even your MTN doesn't work. Your Airtel or whatever, you don't have unless you start running about looking for where you get network. In a country like Nigeria that is blessed with abundant natural and human resources, we are still struggling. I'm using Nigeria because that is the big brother of Africa. So pardon me if you are from Ghana or any other country joining us. I'm using Nigeria because what happens in Nigeria happens in most other African countries. I don't want to talk about those that have gone beyond us, but let's talk about those that are like us, those that are like us. Now I remember back in the US last year when I was in the US, I was in the Nuba and I was talking to someone from Morocco or something. Yeah, Morocco. You know, so the experiences they shared with me, I say, oh my God, are they part of Africa? Are they in Africa and the same continent with Nigeria? Even here in Ghana, the closest country or what we have, they have 24 hours of electricity today. That's what I heard. I'm not sure. I don't know. I've not been to Ghana, but that's what I heard. So how come Nigeria, the giant of Africa, we don't have electricity 24 hours? Now, I said I'm just creating this background so that you know how important strategic leadership is. So let me slow down. So, ladies and gentlemen, like she said, yeah, I've done a lot of work working with government and working in the private sector. So I want us to look at nation building. Now, what is the foundation of nation building? A nation cannot survive when the people do not have trust in the government. And that is exactly the case for Nigeria. So nation building is not an abstract concept, it's not an abstract idea. It's an intentional process. It's an intentional process. You have it in mind. This is what we want to do. And it depends on the quality of leadership and the level of trust that exists between the people and their leaders. It's an intentional effort. Okay, so now let's look at what forms or what leads to nation building. One of them is public trust. Now, like I said here, this is an invisible infrastructure of governance that determines whether societies can sustain progress. Where there is no trust, just like in a relationship, if you are in a relationship with someone and you don't trust each other, that relationship cannot work. So today in Nigeria, there's a serious issue with trust on the government. Most people, over 90% of Nigerians do not trust the people that are leading them, starting from the lowest level, local government to state level to national level. They don't trust them. Now, because they don't trust them, they are not interested in what the government is doing. Forget about party members, members of APC or PDP or Labour Party, forget about that. But by the time people win and become leaders at various levels, the, the people that emerge as leaders, they lack public trust because, because of the things we are going to discuss. Okay, because of the things we are going to talk about. Now, the next thing is another foundation or another factor that helps to build nations is what this thing we are talking about, strategic leadership. It is a process through which public trust is designed, built, and maintained over time. It is a process by which public trust is built and maintained over time. Over time, strategic leadership. Strategic means it has to be intentional, it has to be thought about, it has to be designed so that from this stage to the next stage to the next one to the next one until you get the result that you are looking for. So it has to be strategic, not just accidental. Okay, now another one is strong institutions. Now, these are resilient systems that citizens can rely on and believe in. Okay, now let me go back to something. Let me go back to public trust. Now, if I ask you, you see, that's why I wanted to be looking at your faces and asking you questions. Now, if I ask you, how many of you watch NTA today? I don't know. How many? How many of you, when it is 9 p.m., you go to NTA to watch network news? How many of you do still do that? Now, the reason is because you have lost confidence in the system, in the government. So you don't believe that anything good can come from the system. That is why. So whether the government is struggling to be better or not, you don't care because you have already lost interest. So now let me come back to strong institutions. Like I said, these are systems that citizens can rely on and believe in. Okay, so today, let me ask you, do you believe in the judiciary? Do you believe in INEC, judiciary? Let me stop at those two. Do you believe in them? You know, that is most times you hear politicians say, just announce my name, let my opponents go to court. Now, when they say that, what does it mean? Again, some people don't believe in INEC because they believe or they think or they believe that the people in government, they are bought over INEC. So the success or failure of every nation depends on this important factor, trust. When trust is strong, institutions function well. And where trust is weak, even well-designed systems must collapse. Now, even if INEC has, because the name is Independent Electoral Commission, even if the leaders have decided to be independent and also be people oriented, it will be difficult for the people to believe them because of what we have experienced in the past. So there is no more trust. So that's why I said, because there is no more trust, even if the INEC, the leadership, the new leadership wants to be better, people will still not believe it. I wish I could get responses from you. Okay, so now let's talk about the leadership question in Africa. Across Africa, leadership is often discussed in emotional terms. We talk about good leaders and bad leaders, politics, elections, and personalities. Talking about, let's come back to Nigeria, talking about P2B, Tinubu, and all of that. So that's what we see as leadership. That's what we discuss. We talk about the forthcoming elections 2027. We're talking about APC, PDP, ADC, and all of that. Now, see, strategic leadership requires moving away from personalities to discussions about systems. Strategic leadership is more about how do we make INEC better? How do we make INEC stronger to the extent that even Mr. President cannot even influence the outcome of the next elections? That's what strategic leadership should be about. It should be about installing judges or justices of the High Court, even at the Supreme Court, that we can trust during the tribunals and election petition season. So these should be what the people should be talking about, and not about APC, not about ADC or PDP, and not about the forthcoming elections, not about P2B or Tinubu. They should be more concerned about INEC. Is INEC able to run the elections free and fair? So the leadership question in Africa. Now the question is, the real question should not be about who becomes, okay, good, I just talked about who. It shouldn't be about who becomes the leader, but about leaders, about how leadership can be structured to produce trust and long-term results. That's what it should be about. In Africa, look, let's talk about the reality. Many of our governance challenges are institutional failures, not simply leadership failures. Like I said, institutional failures. Has INEC been fair to us as Nigerians? For everyone here, I'm sure you don't see INEC as a successful or as a strong institution. Even judiciary. I know most of you too do not think that the judiciary is strong, is doing well. So the challenges we are having are institutional challenges, not simply about the president or the governors or the local government chairman, but the institutions that bring them, the institutions that they run. So now the challenge is that we usually have strong leaders instead of strong institutions. We have presidents that are so powerful, but a national assembly that is weak, or a judiciary that is weak. But we have strong presidents, we have strong governors, but the institutions that can keep them accountable and make them transparent, we don't have. So strategic leadership must focus not only on making decisions, but on building institutions that citizens can trust. Now, I listed them out. INEC, for example, the judiciary, the legislature. These are the institutions that citizens can trust. So the leadership, strategic leadership there should be more concerned about making these institutions very strong so that the people can trust them. Okay, let's talk about understanding public trust. What is this trust we are talking about? Public trust can only be built when citizens believe these three fundamental things about their leaders and about the government. One of them is competence. The citizens must believe that their leaders have the capability to make sound decisions and manage their resources effectively. This is one of the major issues where people don't trust the government, because most of them, they think that the people that are elected into office, they are not competent because of the processes that brought them into office. They are not competent, but they emerge as governors. They are not competent, but they emerge as House of Assembly members or senators. So as soon as the incompetent person emerges, so the people withdraw, they lose interest and start counting another 4 years when the next election will come. So, and that is why today I am working on a new book. The title is Why the Best Candidates Lose Elections in Nigeria. It will be out very soon. So you see people campaigning. You see people with wonderful manifestos. You see people with wonderful history of what they have achieved in the past. But when they go for elections, they don't win. I know some people that never attended any public debates during the 2023 elections, but today they are in government, either as the president or as governors or as National Assembly members. But they refuse to go stand with all their opponents to discuss their ideas, discuss their programs. So when such persons become your leaders, unfortunately, you won't trust them because you know they are not competent to make decisions that will affect or determine the future of your life and those of your family members. Then the next is fairness and accountability. Citizens, for if we must have public trust, citizens must believe that their leaders are fair, transparent, and answerable to them. So fairness and accountability. It has become so difficult. You cannot even, when someone becomes House of Assembly member representing you, you don't even have access to him again. Or someone that becomes governor, it becomes difficult to have access. So how can you call them to order? So another thing is public interest. Citizens must believe that their leaders are acting in the interest of the public rather than their own personal gains. But unfortunately, that is the case with us in Nigeria. I'm using Nigeria as an example, remember. So the citizens, these are some of the reasons why they have lost interest in the government or in today's leadership, because they believe that those who are in government or state actors, they are not acting in the interest of the public. They are being selfish about their decisions, about everything they do, in their word of contrast, in their word, so all of those things. That is why people don't have trust in the government institutions. Now, when these conditions exist, citizens cooperate with policies, participate in civil. Okay, so now listen, when all of these things we have talked about, when they are competent, when they are fair and accountable, and then when they are acting on or in the interest of the public, the citizens will cooperate with the policies that they release. Citizens will participate in civic life and support national development. But when these are absent, there is disengagement. People will not longer be interested. And that is why I asked you, if you are sincere to yourself, you can tell me the last time you watched NTA. I'm using NTA because it's a government station. And because most of their news are government news, you are not interested. Now let me tell you something. Now, I saw this, I experimented and I saw this, happen live. In 2019 or so, now we invited, when I was the executive director at Tugumba Leadership Center, we invited one of the directors from CBN, to come speak at our event. Our event was an entrepreneurship program. So when this man was talking about what do you call it now? Some of the grant programs and grant programs that were available for young people and women. So many people, when he finished, the way people rushed him, you'll be amazed. And why did they do that? The reason was because they didn't know about all of those opportunities he talked about. Why? Because they are no more interested. They're not interested in what the government is doing. Even when the government, at a point, was trying to be fair and more people oriented, people got enchanted and they lost interest. So that is what we are discussing. Okay, I'm trying to see if there are questions for me on the comment. Okay. So ladies and gentlemen, what I'm talking about, these are the issues that we have today in the system. Now let's go to the architecture of public trust. Now, like I said before, trust does not happen by accident. Public trust, you must be intentional. When you want to build trust. Remember what I said before. If you are in a relationship and you don't trust each other, the relationship is I don't know how to say it, is dead from beginning. Because if you don't trust each other, there is no way you can work with each other. So trust is designed, it is designed just as architects design buildings with structures and foundations. Leaders must design systems that can build and sustain public trust in the society. Like I said, just as architects design buildings with foundations and structure, leaders in government must design systems that can build and sustain public trust in the society. How does this happen? One, citizen participation, policy consistency, accountability, and then transparency. Now we'll take the one after the other. Now let's talk about transparency. Citizens must know how decisions are made. How decisions are made. Now, if I ask you people now, how did the new INEC chairman, how did he emerge? How was he selected? I am sure you do not know. I am sure you do not know. Then let me ask you the most recent one that happened, the IG of police, the new IG of police. There was so much buzz about it. So many people said they disliked how the man was promoted, jumping some other people ahead of him to become the IG of police. So many issues. Now that was enough to even let some people in the police force to resign because they feel that the process was not transparent. Ordinarily, according to them, the most ranking officer should have been the next person to take over. So those are some of the issues. The next chairman, for example, we hear, I don't know how close he was with whether what do you call it, Wike or Mr. President. I don't know, but so these are some of the issues. How did he emerge? How did he emerge? So if those things or those rumors are correct, it means the people will not trust INEC and whatever will be the outcome of the next elections. The Attorney General, sorry, the Chief Justice of the Federation and stuff like that, even at the state level, how do they emerge? The processes of appointing them, how does that, or how who does that, and did that person follow the due process? I know our constitution has vested so much power on the chief executive, governor at the state level, and the president at the national level. But there are checks and balances that can make the processes transparent and accountable. Are we following them? Unfortunately, the system has made assemblies, the legislature, like rubber stamp. Most times you see, before even the chief executive sends a bill to the assembly, they have already passed it. It's quite unfortunate. And I'm sure, I don't know if you have had, I am sure, okay, sorry, even if you've not had, do you know that there was a time in America, they had a shutdown. Why? The shutdown was because the Senate refused to approve or pass what the president sent to them, what Mr. Trump sent to them. They refused to pass it. So there was stalemate. They refused, the president refused. So that was why there was government shutdown in America. But here you cannot try it. In most African countries, you cannot try it. You cannot try because we have strong presidents and strong governors. I don't want to talk too much about this. So now, if the system is transparency, okay, look at what I said here. Transparency reduces suspicion and strengthens legitimacy. When the people know how decisions are made, how their resources are allocated, it will reduce suspicion and strengthen legitimacy. Then another one is accountability. Public trust grows only when the leaders know they are answerable to the citizens. When you cannot invite the president to come and account for his decisions, when the National Assembly cannot do that, how do you believe in the system? Last time there was so much noise about Mr. President went to the National Assembly to present, I think, a budget or so, and everybody they were singing, "On your mandate we stand." Okay, let me leave that. They are politicians. It happened in the court. I'm trying to remember now. It happened in the court, Supreme Court or something like that. And the judges or justices were singing, "On your mandate we shall stand." That that one was a serious issue to people that understand it. How can the judiciary, which is another arm of government, be singing on your mandate for Mr. President? And how can the National Assembly be also be will become a subsidiary of the executive? So these are some of the issues that you know. Okay, so now talk about policy consistency. Good. Now the masses lose confidence in the system when policies constantly, for example, this governor, you are building, let's say you are building a road from so place to so place. By the time you leave office, because you did not complete that project, the next governor will come and abandon it. Okay, let's say you are a governor and you decided to implement a free education program for your state. Then as soon as you leave, the next governor that comes abandons that program. So how do the people feel? How will the masses take it? There is no consistency in the system. This one comes wherever he stops. When the next person comes, the person will begin his own and abandon the other one. We have also seen cases where they even destroy the other person's projects so that they can discredit him or her and start their own. So there is need for continuity. There is need for continuity if public trust should be sustained in the system. Then citizens' participation. Public trust grows when citizens feel they are included in national conversations and become partners in development rather than observers. When the people feel, when you consult them, when you consult the people, they bring their own opinions. So now what that means is that they begin to see themselves as partners in progress. They begin to see themselves as partners in development, not just observers that sit and watch you take decisions and implement your own policies without getting them involved. So when they get involved, there is a level of ownership that they give to that project. And that is why in the past, or in most places, in most states, people will sit down or will be in their villages and they see a project thrown at them. Let's say, let me give example. Which one can I give now? Let me see. Okay, let's say what they need is water. Okay, good. Let's assume what they need is water. What they need, the most urgent need in that community is water. And all of a sudden, what the government brings to them is another set of classrooms in a school that is already existing. What they now see a contractor coming to build another, let's say coming to build a conference hall. Is it conference hall? Coming to build auditorium in a school. But these people lack water. Now, why that is happening, or why that can happen is because the people were not asked what they needed. What was it? What was their need? They were not involved. They were not asked questions. And all of a sudden, because there was one man, a contractor or a powerful leader in the government, he decides to bring a project and award it to his friend, leaving the water that was or that is a major issue for that community. So this is citizens' participation. If you want to build public trust, you must carry the people along. Ask them what they need before you can go ahead to do that for them. I don't know if anybody, let me see if you have questions. Can I, okay, in a system, okay. Oh, yeah, I want to know how you feeling. If you're enjoying the session, I'm not finished, but let me know how you feel about it. Um, yeah, if
Sir,
you have,
we
go
are really
ahead.
enjoying the session, sir. We are really
Okay,
enjoying the
then,
session, sir. It has been impactful so far.
okay. Oh, somebody said rice.
Yes, sir.
Uzoma Weaver. Okay, they bring bags of rice when they need water. Is it what you mean, Uzoma?
Actually, yes.
Okay, fantastic. So that is an issue. Yeah, I'm trying to read their comments. Sorry, just 1 minute. Okay, so yeah, those are nuggets. Public trust doesn't happen by accident, but by intentionality of a lead. Correct. Our Mike, yes, I think that yeah, that's what I said. Very correct. So if you have your questions or comments, oh, someone said that's what he said. Good. And the funny part is the rice comes in 5 kg bags. Uzoma, the rice comes in 5 kg bags, not even 50, not the full bags. It comes in 5 kg. That's quite unfortunate. Okay, so let me continue the session. So now let me talk about strategic versus reactive leadership. I've been talking about strategic leadership. So, and I said is being intentional, and thinking about the future and trying to build trust. So let's look at the difference between this and the other one. So the reactive leadership focuses on short-term political survival and immediate challenges, while strategic leadership focuses on long-term institutional strength and impact. Now listen carefully. Strategic leaders think beyond election cycles. They think beyond 2027 elections. They ask these questions. Listen now. What institutions will remain strong 20 years from now? They think about how can we make INEC so strong that no more rigging. Last time INEC introduced beavers and everybody welcomed the idea thinking that it was going to work. But unfortunately, 2023, everyone here, you saw what happened. The beavers that they spent millions of dollars to acquire, most of them were not used for the last elections. The IREV they talked about didn't work again. So these are some of the innovations that they brought into the system that people applauded. At the end of the day, for whatever reason, they didn't work again. So people, strategic leaders, they think beyond the elections. They think of how to make the society better, how to build or make institutions strong so that it can turn around, the system and bring development. So they think about what policies will outlive our tenure. I am governor today. When I leave office as governor, what institutions or what policies am I going to launch or introduce that will outlive me, that will still better the lives of the people? So I'm saying that the most impactful leaders in history are remembered not only for what they did while in office, but for the institutions they left behind. I'm sure you know Obasanjo. Obasanjo, still remains one of the best presidents that we have ever had. I'm sure, I don't know, maybe some of you are, okay, you were very young when he was president. There are so many things Obasanjo introduced, like this EFCC we are talking about, EFCC, ICPC, and so many others, Public Complaints Commission, and so many others. So many things Obasanjo introduced, and they are still useful today, even though the strong leaders are using them at their own advantage. And I'm sure you know that EFCC has been accused severally of being used by the government to attack their opponents. I don't know if you have heard that. Me, I have heard that, and it's a big issue. If an institution like EFCC could be accused of being used as an attack dog for the government against the opposition, it's is a question mark. It's a question mark. It's a question mark. It's a question mark. So let's continue. Now, let's look at the responsibilities of the new generation. You are the new generation. You are the new generation. Remember, I said you are the new generation. Whether you are Gen Z or Y or F or whatever, I don't know what it is now. You are the new generation. So I want you to know that nation building is not the responsibilities of only the political leaders in government. Nation building and the public trust can only be built by the whole society, by the society as a whole. So for you, if you are in whichever system you are, if you are in academics, or let me start from this, if you are an entrepreneur, a young person building a business or trying to run a business, your own responsibility is to build or support the economic development of the country. When you do that, you are contributing to nation building. If you are in the academics, you are in the school system, you are teaching at secondary or primary or university level, you are contributing to nation building when you educate, when you help us educate future leaders. Now, what you are doing, I'm happy about it. The name is Nation Building Series. Oh, correct. That's correct. That's correct. I just remember that now. So now what you are doing, you are helping to educate future leaders. So you are playing your role in this process. So like I said, it is everybody's responsibility. We have talked so much about people in government. So now I want to talk to you. You also have a responsibility. What is your responsibility? Do that thing you can do to support the system. If you are in the civil society, help us build accountability systems and promote transparency. Speak out against injustice. Speak out against injustice. That is important if you operate in the civil society sector. Then, if you're a young professional, like I said, build professional standards and ethical practices. So everybody has a role to play in nation building. Not only the president, not only the governors, because they have their terms are fixed. They have only 4 years or 8 years, as the case may be. So those 8 years, they will do what they can do. So when they leave, another person goes in. So their offices are not permanent. So that is why it may be difficult. And that's why I talked about continuity. Continuity. So if this president starts this process, wherever he stops, the next president coming should be able to continue it. You don't just turn things around and start afresh. So you lose. There are so many programs started by other previous governments that we don't have again today. I don't know if you know about You Win. Do you know about You Win? You Win, good. Shopee, I know about Shopee, I know about You Win. I remember You Win. Some of the people that won You Win, they don't know anybody in government. They told me they never knew anybody. They saw the application and they applied and got selected. They didn't know anybody that influenced it. But so many people did not apply because they didn't believe it was going to work. I know, I know so many in the past, when government announces for any of such programs or scholarship programs, the people will just on what do you call it, in their mind they just say, why do I have to bother myself to apply? They have already given it to their brothers children, their uncles children, their relations. They have already shortlisted their names. They just put it for us to just see and try. At the end of the day, they will select their people. That was the news in town and what I was thinking. But that You Win came and the people that applied, some of them got it on merit. They didn't know anybody. Even scholarships. Some people have also got scholarships that way. They didn't know anybody. So the government, at some point, the leaders or who becomes the chief executive, they try as much as they can do or could do to become more transparent. So when the people, because of the distrust, they don't even know. They don't believe it until when they see people giving testimonies. I didn't know anybody. I just applied and I got selected. So that is what happens. So, like I said, institution building and trust is the defining challenge for this generation. You must help to restore trust and build institutions. So we need to rise to that occasion. Like I said, everyone has a role to play. I've talked about the role you have. So begin to play your role. There's no time, no time is late. You can start right now. Okay, so let's talk about rebuilding trust in Africa. How can we do this? Africa has enormous potentials. Remember what I said before? We are gifted in both natural. Okay, sorry. Is it time? Oh, okay. For the next session. Oh, sorry, please. Okay, so let me hurry. They say it's time already. Okay. So, like I said, rebuilding trust in Africa. So you have to, honest communication, fairness in government, and all of that. Africa has enormous potentials. We see young entrepreneurs building innovative companies and this and that, this and that. Okay, so final reflection. Strategic leadership is ultimately about taking responsibilities. The responsibility to think beyond ourselves, the responsibility to build systems that will endure, and the responsibility to leave institutions stronger than we found them. These are the things that make up strategic leadership. So, in conclusion, I want you to know that Africa will not only be determined, the future of Africa will never or will not only be determined by our natural resources, but by the quality of leadership and the strength of trust between the citizens and the institutions. I think at this juncture, I want to thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak to you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. Sorry, I didn't know you had another session. I thought this was the only session you had. Thank you so much for your time, and God bless you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that powerful and enlightening address. It was powerful for me. It's like you said, it's a call to responsibility. We all have a role to play in building a good nation. Thank you so much, sir. So we now move into one of the most important segments of today's event, the nation building dialogue session. Yes. To begin the session, I would like to introduce the focus of today's dialogue, the assembly. About the assembly, at the core of every NBS edition is a powerful idea that nation building is not just one sector conversation. It requires collaboration, shared responsibility, and diverse perspectives. This is why we have the assembly. The assembly is a group of 5 distinguished individuals representing key sectors relevant to today's theme: governance, accountability, and the future of public trust in Africa. They are thought leaders and contributors shaping system and narrative within their fields. And I have the honor of introducing these exceptional individuals, starting with the Assembly Convener. The Assembly Convener, Mr. Joshua Oluwanifemi Olatunde. Please join me as I welcome Mr. Joshua Oluwanifemi Olatunde. So, I would like to read the profile of Mr. Joshua. Joshua is a governance strategist and policy professional with experience across legislative system, public sector engagement, and youth policy advocacy. He has worked with the Lagos State House of Assembly and ECO Excel, and currently serves as the country coordinator for AFRIMPE and a youth leader within the ECOWAS Youth Council. We are honored to have you here, sir, as you lead the assembly. Thank you so much, Mr. Anifemi. So I'm moving to the second sector, that's law and civic advocacy. We have Mr. Bisemi Bian. Bisemi Bian is a law graduate and governance advocate with experience in legal practice and civic engagement, including work with Yali Legal Aid. He is passionate about human rights and access to justice and also governance reform. You're welcome, Mr. Bisemi Bian. Moving to the third sector, media, public affairs, and communication. Please warmly welcome Mrs. Opeoluwa Michael Ayobami. Mrs. Opeoluwa is a broadcast journalist and media professional with experience across multiple radio stations in Nigeria. She currently works with RCCG Radio and is committed to impactful storytelling and responsible media engagement. You're welcome, Mrs. Opeoluwa. Moving to the fourth sector, education and civic leadership. Please welcome Mr. Olaniyi Ayodele. Ayodele. Mr. Olani is an educator and policy researcher specializing in education and governance. He holds a PhD in policy and strategic study and currently works at Montreal University, Canada. You're welcome, Mr. Olani. Moving to the fifth sector, health policy and governance. Please welcome Mr. Moboluwaduro Michael. Mr. Moboluwaduro Michael is a communication specialist working in the public health sector and policy within Lagos State government. He is also the founder of Brand Me Africa and leads initiative focused on health access and social impacts. You're welcome. You're welcome. Please, with a round of applause, let's welcome our distinguished assembly. These are the voices that will help us engage today's team and move us closer to building system that we can trust. I now hand over to the assembly convener, Mr. Onali. Mr. Oluwanifemi, are you there? Over to you, sir, to share your insights. You're welcome on stage. Mr. Oluwanifemi, can you hear me?
Yes, can you please confirm if you
Oh,
can hear me too?
good evening. Over to you, sir. You're welcome.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can hear you.
I want to be sure that everyone hear me. Can you just confirm if you can?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Hello, everyone. Hello,
Hello.
everyone. Good evening. Can you please hear me? Can you please confirm if you can hear me? I want to be sure that
We can hear you, sir.
I'm
We can
loud
hear
and
you loud
clear.
and clear. Loud and clear. Yeah.
It's a privilege to convene this important conversation. You know, uh, it's at the STEM generally, and we are here to discuss issues that are bordering not just Nigeria, but welcome all assembly members, and we are going to be having provide some.
Sorry, I'm not sure if it's just me, but I'm having difficulties hearing the current speaker.
I have the same issue. I can hear him
Oh, okay. I just wanted to be
breaking.
sure.
The network is breaking.
Yeah, and it's even
I
rolling
think he has
right now.
network issues, so let's be patient with him.
Oh
Thank
yeah,
you.
I just wanted to make sure that it was not just me.
Yeah, it's okay.
I think um,
So please, everyone, let's be patient with Mr. Oluwanifemi. I think he's trying to join back, so he's going to join very soon. Thank you. We are so sorry for the delay. Mr. Luanifemi went to sort out the network issue. So it's going to be back very, very soon. Just a minute. Just in a minute time, it's going to be back. We are very sorry for the network issue. Mr. Anifemi, you're welcome. You're welcome. Can you?
Can you confirm if you can hear me now?
We can hear you, sir. We can hear you.
You can hear me now. I'm sorry about the breakup. I had to change my router. All right. So once again, I want to say welcome to everyone, and it's very interesting that we are having this conversation at this time, the time where we have trust gap between the citizen and the system, both government and institutions that are supposed to protect the citizens and the people. All right, first I want to say it's a great privilege to be convening this dialogue session, and also I want to say welcome to all assembly members. We are going to be having a very interesting conversation, and the thematic area that we are going to be touching are also very profound. So once again, I want to say welcome to everybody. The subject matter that we are going to be discussing, it's coming up at a time where people have lost hope in what the system is supposed to be. You know, when there's a system that is supposed to serve the people, and for one reason or the other, you feel like this system isn't working anymore. You know, it's very dangerous, uh, not just for the system itself, but also for the people. You know, a society cannot thrive if there is no trust. And that, unfortunately, that is where we have found ourselves as a people. We're also going to be exploring possible solutions. We don't just want to talk, we want to explore solutions, and we want to see how we can we are going to give insight into what the way forward should be and should look like. We will also, we will be having very honest, practical, action-driven conversation, one that challenges perspective, but also provides clear pathway to engagement. All right. So in this dialogue, we are going to be touching some very interesting thematic area, and we are going to be talking governance and public policy. We'll be talking about law and civic advocacy, uh, media, public affairs and communication, education and civil leadership, health, all of these thematics area. I believe that if we have a government or an institution that is able to successfully manage these thematics area that we have highlighted, I promise you that government is probably going to record the highest success. So that is why we're having this dialogue today. And because I don't want to be the only one discussing, we are going to move straight into this dialogue session, and we'll be exploring this particular conversation starting from I'm looking at starting from law and civic advocacy. This particular part is something I personally also want to listen to attentively. I want to hear the perspective, of when that when it comes to our thematics area, what the theme of this particular this particular dialogue. I want to know what I want to hear the perspective of law and advocacy, in this conversation. So, are you ready, sir? Are you ready, sir?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Are you ready, sir? Please confirm if
Yeah,
you're
can you hear
ready
me?
to go on with your insight. We just want you to share the thematics
Can you
area
hear
and
me?
as it relates to.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, we can hear you.
All right.
I can hear you.
All right. Thank you very much. First of all, let me just state what an
Are you ready
extraordinary
for us?
honor it is to be part of this conversation and to be
Can
part
you
of,
please confirm if you
so
are
many
ready
young people
for
who
us and
are
you can hear me loud and clear?
passionate about the future of this country, who believe in the greatness of this country and are willing to, harness their education and their youthful energy to see how we can meet the challenges that we face as a nation, and to also see how we can contribute in shaping the future of this country. Now, before I go further, I just want to say that I don't want the conversation to just be like an intellectual exchange. I would like us, to talk about ideas and solutions from the heart so that we can help, inspire the hundreds and thousands of young people out there who will be watching us, because even as I've been called to represent the law and civic advocacy arm of the conversation, I my contributions and perspectives will not just be, from the knowledge I garnered from the university and my law school, or the books I've read and the people I've interacted with, but it's also be from, my first-hand experience as a Nigerian, and also my experience, in working with young people and
So we know if can you hear me? Mr. Olani, can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can. I
Yeah,
think we
I can
lost
hear you.
the other speaker.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you very much. I think that should Okay. Yes, and because I also want us to go with the flow. Mr. Besemi, are you back with us?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just having network issues on my end,
Are
so
you back with us?
I apologize for that. Yes, sir, I can hear you.
However, we are hoping that we are able to manage it properly so that the flow of our conversation stays intact. All
Okay.
right, Mr. Abia, are you back with us? Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, I can hear you perfectly.
All right, please go ahead, sir.
Okay, so as I was saying, my contributions and perspectives, will be drawn from, my experience working with young people as a student leader in my community, where we're able to, organize young people to help solve some of the problems that we're facing in our community at the time. So I think that from my experience, I've been able to understand that, you know, people, the citizens or the people, would only, have trust in their government when there is no gap between the expectations that they have of the government and, the realities that they experience. Because in Nigeria today, we understand that the government is responsible for, protecting lives and property. Uh, but the reality is that we have thousands of people dying every day. So in a situation where there is a gap, between the expectations that the citizens have of the government and the realities that they are experiencing, that will lead to the erosion of public trust. So I think that that is the major issue that we face in our country today, and the role that we as citizens can play is by getting involved, engaging with the system. And that's where civic advocacy comes in. Let us try to hold our leaders accountable, and to not just let's say perform selective accountability, where we only hold leaders accountable when they are not our friends, or they are not our relatives, or they are not from the same political parties as as us. So let us uh, try to hold our leaders accountable. And I think that that's the role that we as young people can also play. And the role that law actually plays in nation building cannot be overemphasized. Law is the very mechanism upon which policy reforms, national development plans, even all the ideas and solutions we'll be discussing today, you know, will only end up as wishful thinking if there is no legislation to back it up. And we have seen how citizens have been able to, over time, raise awareness about issues. We talk about the Not Too Young to Run bill, we talk about the electoral reforms, we talk about human rights and all other issues that we face as a country. Now we've seen how law has been able to give life to some of these ideas. So without law, a nation first of all cannot exist, and without law, all these reforms and ideas that we are going to share tonight and the solutions that we'll be preferring from our different sectors would not be implemented. So law is also responsible for helping us, to build stronger democratic institutions. To also help, to reform the current uh, political structure that we have in our country, which most people feel is not helping, to build that cohesive and stable, functional society, for all the different tribes and ethnic nationalities that have been amalgamated in Nigeria. So uh, the law is responsible for building these institutions. It's responsible for creating the mechanism, for all these institutions to work and the different segments within our nation to coexist and to interact with each other. But we must also understand that it is the citizens that actually make accountability work. The law creates the room, for you to actually hold your leaders accountable. But if you are not willing to take advantage of those laws, to engage with the system, now there is no way the leaders can be held accountable. You look at, I think many Nigerians are not even aware of the Freedom of Information Act, which actually allows easy access, you know, of the citizens to public records and public documents and information. We are not aware of that act that actually empowers, the citizens to actually uh, demand, the public officials, to release, public records and information to us. We are also also taking advantages of certain, laws that actually give us, the room to hold our leaders accountable. So I think that in as much as these laws and these institutions exist, if we just fold our hands and expect that, you know, the government, they expect that the government alone and the politicians who will be the ones responsible, for nation building, then I think that we will be, playing a role in destroying democracy and destroying our country and not contributing to the growth and development of our country. So I think that it's necessary for we as citizens to engage with the system and to continue to hold our leaders to account. Because I think what we have in our country is like a vicious circle where you have, poor governance, and then this poor governance, creates, you know, very harsh living conditions for Nigerians, and then that those harsh living conditions will now, discourage the citizens, from engaging with the system, from, public trust, from even voting, because people will be like, okay, I'm suffering, and at the end of the day, elections will be rigged, and then these politicians, will put whoever they want into power, and nothing is going to change. And then when we disengage from the system continuously, now we are leaving room, for these politicians to do whatever it is that they like, with no room for accountability. And then when there is no room for accountability again, it still strengthens poor governance, and then poor governance will go further to, you know, worsen the living conditions of the people, and just like a vicious circle. And that is why we, as young people, we as Nigerians, need, to take up that responsibility to be involved in building our country, to be involved in the governance of our country. And I believe that this conversation is a step in the right direction, and it will help, to inspire a lot of young people out there, and also to educate them on the role that they can play in nation building. So thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. That was insightful, and thank you for also talking about the freedom of information. Like what people used to say jokingly on social media. You say there's freedom of information, but then is it freedom of information or something like
Yes,
freedom
it's freedom
after
of,
the act is
yes.
what you are not freedom of speech, but
No,
freedom after speech is what is not guaranteed.
okay, if you can hear me clearly, I was actually making reference to the Freedom of Information Act, which allows
Mm.
citizens, access to public records. This Freedom of Information Act that I was actually referring to.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Allowing citizens to public record, and what's the assurance that citizens really get public record? I like the fact that you mentioned it. So this is you educating us, and so we know that what you have right to actually get public record, and it is part of the law. It's covered in the law that you get public record. Thank you very much. I know that we have quite a few questions that are going to be thrown at us soon. They are carefully curated, and we will still, get back to you to have further conversation. All right, so we are going to be moving to the next one. We'll be discussing education and civic leadership, as it relates to the thematics area. It's very important. Education, civic leadership, this is very important. To any nation that wants to build, any nation that wants to survive, really, education and civic leadership is at the front burner. All right, so thank you very much. And can you confirm if you're ready to go, sir?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Nifemi, I can you hear me?
All right. You have the floor,
Okay.
sir. Thank you.
Yeah, just before I proceed, like I think the quote you were trying to look for, Nifemi, someone put it in the chats, and that's freedom of speech is allowed, but freedom after speech is not guaranteed. I think that was said by Idi Amin of Uganda from the despot. So thank you so much for having me on on the platform tonight, and I would say that
Exactly, exactly.
yeah,
Yes, 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 yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
I would say like it's it's really a privilege to be part of this conversation. Everyone who knows me knows that a conversation like this, you would always find me there. Either even at times when I just speak to myself on social media, or I speak to people, or I find myself in gatherings like this, because these are important things that we need to talk about like nation building. So to not to not waste any more of our time, I would go straight into it. I feel I also like I buy into the sentiment that education and civic leadership, like they are two important strongholds when when we're talking about nation building, because education is the foundation. Depending on how a society sees it, education is the foundation of everything we do. And breaking it down, breaking it down further, recently I was going through some reports about the SDGs, and I found in 2020 during the COVID lockdown, something happened. The world, like globally, we lost about 20 years of development in the education sector globally, and that sets like a lot of countries back, especially African countries that were not even close to that were not even close to our counterparts countries in the West and other places. So then furthermore, like I was checking it, and then I saw the never before, that particular situation actually showed that actually emphasized something that we all know. When I say it, you would see that everyone here probably already knows this, that there is schooling and there is learning. You find yourself in school, you complete your secondary school, you complete your primary school, secondary school, university, you are a graduate, and you've you have everything basically to go into the world, go to the labor markets. But the part of learning actually brings everything together, uh, especially when you look at the current situation of Nigeria. The number of out of school children in Nigeria, for example, right now, most of the statistics show this as out of school children, fine, because they are not in school. Many of these kids, like still have some many of them have some alternative forms of learning ongoing. Some, it could be like extra lesson, or just lesson like from like-minded individuals like ourselves, like on this call right now, who or make sure that teach them numeracy skills, teach them literary skills and things like that. So that is learning ongoing, even outside of the walls of the school. And the main goal of this is because this everyone the competition, the pool for the competition is so wide, is so broad. Whenever you go on Twitter, when you go on LinkedIn, when you go somewhere, or you go in the news and you see someone in Japan, or you see someone in China, or you see someone in America, you see someone in the UK, you see them saying, oh, an 18-year-old person created this solution for this particular problem, and this is what people are saying about it. Trust me, this is the same pool, this same set of people that we are competing with. Everybody is competing with. So there's nothing like maybe because you're Nigerian, you're only in competition with other Nigerians. No, like you're competing with everyone else globally. So, and education is how you actually connect that dots. Uh, there's a popular saying, in fact, I had it on my bio for a very long time, that traveling is the best education. Uh, Most of the things I know about some other parts of Nigeria today, and one of the things that I think made me so open-minded about like meeting other people from other parts of Nigeria, doing things together with other people from other parts of Nigeria, is mainly because I opened myself up to the possibility of actually learning where the other person is coming from, what they believe in, what are their belief system, what did they grow up around, and also understanding that we are all coming from different places, bringing like different things that we've known since when we are kids. So and the earliest form of education starts from the family. Okay, so with that said, with that background, let me leave that philosophical aspect of things. I know that Besemi had mentioned that we should try as much as possible not to make this super like maybe make it intellectual like only intellectual conversations. We should also like talk about things like that are practical. So in terms of practicality, I want to talk about civic education. Civic education is something that is in the curriculum at all levels of, like, I think from secondary school to up until university level, or I mean up until tertiary level, because there are different levels of tertiary, different types of tertiary education in Nigeria. You have civic education, you have government. When you get to tertiary, like you see courses like GST, general knowledge, and things like that. Now, and I think in other schools they call it other names. And most of the times, these courses, like they teach us like the foundations of our values, our civic responsibilities, what we should know, what we should do, how we should approach things. But I've always said it that there's a very big disconnect between what we are being taught and what is being practiced. For example, student union government, which is part of education. When you graduate from the university or when you graduate from the polytechnic, they tell you that you have succeeded in both character and learning, right? So student union government, let's talk about student union government in Nigeria. When I got to Canada and I started working with a post-secondary, I've worked with like more than one, I realized something, that student union or student body representation is often like incorporated outside of the institution. So they stand alone as a not-for-profit organization that has its own autonomy and can make its own decisions. Now, that got me thinking about Nigeria. The structure is different, and I get it. Like we have our individual differences, our national differences. But the only thing is that when you trace back the history of student union government and autonomy in Nigeria, you would see that historically, they used to be so free, right? They used to be so free. They used to advocate for things. They used to ask questions. But after a series of proscriptions, after a series of stopping them, stopping them from from advocating and other things at different times or at different points, right? The government back then finally found a way to create an act of parliament that limits the capacity and the operational and that limits the operational capacity of student union governments, which now makes student union governments today depend on the institution, on their school. In fact, they don't even have that autonomy to, or I would say, legitimately seek for funds to run their union. Student dues are collected, they go to the school, and only scraps of it come to them. So student union government are actually forced to make money from selling tickets to events to students, make money from going to politicians to beg for money, which I hope you're following me on how these things can counter-react and create bigger problems, right? They go to politicians and say, hey, I'm the president of this, or I'm the speaker of this, we need this. And then what are the trade-offs? Oh, yes, absolutely. I'm very, very happy to assist you. I'm very happy to give your union ₦1 million. But election is coming. What are you going to do for me? What do I get in return? Right? And these are desperate, and don't misunderstand me. These are people who are desperate because they've been taught civic education since when they were in primary school, but they've never really been allowed to practice it, because all their life it's always been about compliance, not necessarily about putting to practice what it is that they've been learning. So when you look at the series of events in that regard, and just to give an example, I wanted to see how civic education was taught in Nigeria compared to Canada one time. And I decided to check grade 4 students, which I think that should count as primary school in Nigeria, right? I decided to check to see what student body representative like looks like, and I realized that they have an actual election, they campaign, they speak about what they are going to do for their class, and when after winning the election, they actually get a mandate. Now, guess where it got interesting? The fact that those kids, and I mean kids of 9 years old, 8 years old, 9 years old, 10 years old, they have a say. They have a say in budgeting, planning for events that concern their class as early as that age. Please tell me how someone like that would not have the foundational principles and values and expectations to deliver when they find themselves in higher positions of responsibilities in future. So I think not to take so much time, I believe what I've said so far, like that should, like, maybe it, it probably counts for my introduction, and if the conversation comes back to me, I can pick it up from there. But I'm happy to yield the mic for the next speaker here. Thank you. Can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes,
All
very well.
right. Thank you so much, Ayodele. We can hear you. And I've been given go ahead to talk. So it's wonderful what you just said and also what Bia said. I listened very well. It's really what is going on here, and we are discussing about it. It's so good to discuss about it and how it affects the African continent. Um, the keynote speaker, has actually said most of the things that I would like to say about the the media sector. But nevertheless, I'll still say something as a media professional that I am. So we are in a world whereby social media is really the key to pass information around. And I must emphasize that trust is deeply connected to information. So people trust what they understand and they distrust what is hidden or confusing or inconsistent. So we've seen situations whereby we get policies, we hear them, they are being announced, but not clearly explained. So it's either the information is released in a way that average citizens cannot even relate to. In such moments, rumors begin to, spread, and misinformation fills the gap. So we've said something that is really, timely. And today, we know that a piece of false information on social media can travel faster than the truth. And when people begin to rely more on these rumors than the official communication, public trust begins to collapse. Fine, we have governance, we get their spokesperson to, debunk or refute claims that the citizens should not take as the truth, should believe it's misinformation. Yes, we have government officials that debunk all these claims or refute them. So today, a piece of misinformation, or a piece of false information on social media can travel faster than the truth, and people begin to rely more on these rumors, like I said. So this is why the role of media and indeed communication is so important. The media, as always, must go beyond headlines to provide clarity, context, and truth, especially at this time whereby institutions, we want them to also understand at the same time that communication is not propaganda. Our political leaders, they shouldn't see, or our institutional leaders, they shouldn't see information as a means to communicate or propaganda or do propaganda, because we see now in this society that we find ourselves that We get political leaders, for example, they come and talk about how they want to be the governor, or how they want to be the president, or how they want to be the commissioner, or even local government, even council or self. You would see the way they will come with big ambiguous manifestos, and the role of the media is just to communicate this their manifesto. But when it comes to governance as well, they are to be held accountable by the public. And the role of the media will still remain communicating this process of accountability, how they will be held accountable in all. So let me bring this closer to the home. Like I said earlier, that we all experience standing in queues, unless you've not been in Nigeria. If you've never been in Nigeria, you would not have experienced standing in queues, or when you go for any, let's say you go for any registration, especially in banking institutions, you get to be told you have to stand in queues and all. We are made to understand, according to research in other, European countries or abroad, and you see the way their system is so smooth. You just go to maybe their banking institution, and you see less queue the way we queue here. You see less queue over there, and if you queue yourself in Nigeria and and the process doesn't get to you, at the end of the day you'll be told to come back tomorrow and continue the process that you've queued for from morning till afternoon. So that's how the system, the experience is. But the media is just communicate this process, how we can make it better. And we feel like these small moments might look insignificant, right? But they shape how people feel about governance. If you have a situation whereby in a banking institution, you don't want people, the public, to come and queue for long, then there will be processes that, smooth processes that will enable the public to just come to the institution. They, go straight to where they are going to do whatever they want to do and go back. You see, people will come back, or the public will come back, and they will say good things about the institution. The truth is that public trust is not actually built on big speeches. It's built on small, consistent experiences like the one I just shared. So, if we want to move forward, I'll first say that institutions should commit to transparency and responsiveness, because people should not have to struggle to understand systems that are meant to serve them. And also, the media that I'm representing, we remain responsible and ethical, ensuring that truth is protected, not distorted. Because let me even cite an instance about this truth of a thing. I have my friend, then when I wanted to start this journalism profession, then this journalism career, and whenever I'm telling them that, oh, it's time for me to go and cast the news, they'll be telling me, it's in Yoruba. I will interpret. They will say, and you need Iroyin in Yoruba. My friends coined it to Iroyin. That is the lies. They feel like whenever they want to listen to the news, it's also lies that are going to be fed during the course of the news. So it's just the way they saw the system there. But actually, it is not all media houses or media outlets that propagate or deliver provide misinformation to the public. So the media should remain responsible and ethical, ensuring that truth is protected and not distorted. And thirdly, we the citizens, because we all have our profession, we are still citizens to every country we are representing. I'm saying this because I know we have our members of the assembly, and even those that are, listening to the dialogue right now. We have them not from Nigeria, from other African countries, but we at first, we are all citizens of a particular country before we now start saying this is our career, this is what we do for a living as a citizen. So we must become more conscious and engaged just like other members have said earlier, that especially for the civic sector, we should engage. We want to hold our leaders accountable, right? Let's engage them. Let's engage them. We must ask questions. We must, as we are asking questions, we'll make sure we are verifying the information, and also we participate in shaping the society we want. Because whether we like it or not, we all are what is called government. Because they are political leaders, they are appointed there, but we the citizens are the one that appointed them there, and we need to ask questions, hold them accountable, while also verifying those informations we are asking them about. So because governance is not a one-sided responsibility, it is a shared one. So I would like to say this before I quickly hand over back to the next person, that as we build moments that like this, especially the wave as presented to us, we must remember that nation building is not just about talking; it is about acting. It's about consistently being responsible and as citizens. So we know that the future of Africa will not be defined by only politics, or I mean, or policies or the leaders, but by the level of trust between the people and the system that govern them. So I would like to say, at this point, the media is just here to make sure that we regulate all the information being passed across from institutions. And I will also say that as I would, leave for the next person, that trust will only grow when governance is transparent and accountability is real and communication is honest. You want an effective and honest communication. Let's start with all of us. We have deep fake news there out there on social media. Verify before you also start sharing, and the trend of misinformation starts circulating. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that insightful session. And like you said, one thing I usually say is verify before you amplify. It's very important. However, I have a concern with you media people, and especially as it concerns politics, governance, and you know we and citizenship education. Um, the media is supposed to be our go-to. We expect that the media should be trusted. The media should be able to help us, give us information that are true. However, um, it has been discovered in recent times that media that is supposed to be open and just for dissemination of information is now becoming a tool for politics. And when the media space that is supposed to be our guide, literally, media is supposed to be our guide. You know, somebody you can trust, somebody that feeds you information, somebody that helps you stay updated. However, if you are reporting something from a particular perspective, I'm sure a lot of us have heard situations, or we've heard stuffs like, "Oh, they bought the media," they bought the media you know and well, I was born in the early 90s, and until very recently, like 15 years ago, um 10, 12, 13 years ago, thereabout, there was nothing like buying the media. Like, I could trust what I hear and see on NTA. But now I'm worried that people now tell you, if you hear something on TVC, that news, that update cannot be true. Go and check on channels. Channels is for this one, TVC is for this and that and that. And I don't know what you will advise us to do at this point, but it's a concern when it comes to the media. And we are talking about the gap. We are talking about trust that is yet to be, the gap that has happened between the institution and the people. And one of the reasons why this gap keeps expanding is because of you media people. You are not helping us. So, what do we do? How do we mend this relationship? You guys have broken our hearts so much that we don't know? How do we make up at this point?
Thank you so much for that question. The first thing is the problem we have currently, and I even think generally, is misinformation. Is misinformation. So the moment the right information is not passed across, it becomes misinformation, right? And once the wrong information gets to the public, when the truth comes out, the public will now start saying, it's a lie. The media is lying. It's not the truth. That is why we have institutions that whenever they want to pass across information, they use their spokesperson. They use their spokesperson. And I would advise that when you're trying to get information about something, just like you distinguish that, okay, they said TVC is being bought, then channels is not, channels is saying the truth or something like that. Yes, we hear things like that. We hear things like that, but it doesn't stop the fact that the media is being bought. It's not being bought though. The media is not being bought. It's just the issue about misinformation that is making it sound as if the media is being bought.
All right. Thank you very much. Well, uh, as you said is misinformation. So I want to believe that, like, accepting that it's misinformation is one step to mending our hearts. You know. All right. Thank you very much for that session. And yes, I'm going to be talking about policy and public policy and governance. And this particular conversation is so important as to where we are today as Africans, as young people. When we talk, a lot of people, when we talk about governance, for example, young people in Nigeria will think governance is something that happens, distance away in Abuja, something that happens government offices. And no, you think that is what we call governance. But then, governance is actually how decisions that affect your everyday life are being made, whether you are part of it or not. Some guys on Nagbada and suit will be somewhere making decisions that will affect your life, whether you want to accept it or not. So usually, when we now mention something very close to governance is what we call public policy. Public policy is now the actions, decisions, and the rules that government puts in place. So when you talk about education, you're talking about healthcare, you're talking about road taxation and all. These are not just random issues. They are not random conversation. They are not random English that just come up from anywhere. These are outcomes of public policy. It simply refers to what, like, if you say governments are decisions that are made, public policy is what forms that decision that are being made. And as Nigerians, for example, I'm just going to give a typical example. Elections are coming in our country. What are the young people saying? 2027 election is coming. It's going to determine how our life will be for the next 4 years. What are the young people saying at this time? A lot of people are saying, I'm not going to be part of the system. A lot of people are saying, see, I'm just going to stay at home. At the last general elections in Nigeria, I went round. I was going round, and I'm just checking, seeing what's happening and all. It will interest you to know that young people are on the streets playing football. Like young adults, on the field, on the streets, like every corner you pass. People go as far as using tires to do goalposts because they just want to play football. These are people that on a very good day, they probably would not play. But because they are not able to go out, now they want to play football. And it's very unfortunate that you will stay in your house, you will Netflix and chill, you will do one thing or the other, and some people somewhere will make decisions that will affect your life for the next 4 years. I understand that there's a place of gap. The trust is no longer there. People say, oh, they no longer trust the system. They no longer want to be part of the system. But then, if you continue like that, the system continues like that. So, from a public policy and governance perspective, I like to break down, this conversation into 3 pillars. The first one, I call it transparency. Are decisions open and visible? Can citizens see how public funds are being used? Can citizens see how public funds are being used? That's one part of transparency. That I believe that if government, as an institution, wants to gain the trust of the people, this is one of the things that we need to put in place. I'm speaking as an insider, someone that has had the opportunity to work at the Lagos State House of Assembly. I've had the opportunity to work in the office of one of the senior special assistants of the governor at the time. I've had my fair share in government, and I am still very much active when it comes to politics and governance, especially political advocacy for young people in governance. I am very much active. Now, so I am talking as an insider, and I'm telling you that I believe that a lot of us are not well informed. It is as much as you think that decisions are not open and visible, and there's no, are you seeing the fonts? Like, there's no transparency. I'll tell you one for free. While I was working at the Lagos State House of Assembly, I understand that before, laws are being passed, before bills are being passed into law, there is something called public hearing. How many people know that there's a public hearing? What public hearing does is to bring in civil society groups, interest groups, individuals, organizations, NGOs, everybody come and have conversation as it concerns this bill. It's open. Come and have conversation as it concerns this bill that are about to be passed. People will air their opinion as to what this is how this bill is going to affect us. Why not? Can this bill be adjusted this way? Can this happen? Can this happen? Public opinion. Then when these conversations are being had, recorded, transcribed, it's been, considered. Some are being, put into the amendment of that bill before it becomes a law. While some will, this person is right, but this cannot fly at this time. Maybe when it's time for an amendment, then we can do this. However, a lot of people are not aware. So you think that decision making are not open and visible. Another concern is this when it comes to transparency, is that how sincere are the public office holders? So it is very understandable that, there is a gap. We no longer trust the system. But then you cannot give up on the system, because whether you like it or not, some guys, I said it earlier, some guys on Agbada, some guys on suit, some of them are not even as read as you are going to make decisions that will govern your life for a particular period of time. So that is one. The second thing that I highlight is accountability. Can leaders be questioned? Are there consequences when things go wrong? In this country, Nigeria, I have heard, I've seen people question leaders. And unfortunately, we've also seen people being punished for questioning leaders. And one way or the other, it just increases the gap in trusting the institution. For example, we've seen people in high places use the police, the law enforcement institution to torment an average person. Why? Because that average person decided to pick up his or her phone to say something that they feel, this is not good enough. You feel uncomfortable. And one thing our political office holders need to understand is this. The moment you put yourself out for a particular political office or the other, then you're already in the public space. You are in our eyes. We have every right to pry into your private life, whatever. If you are going to be making decisions that will determine where my life goes for a particular period of time, then I should get to know you better beyond what you're putting out. So people go far, above and beyond just to suppress, that questioning. When accountability start becoming, victimization, they think you're victimizing them, you're making them uncomfortable because you're asking questions. That's one of the reasons why we have this gap. However, I'm trying to balance this conversation so that as much as we want to highlight the gap, we also need to look at way forward. I don't want to just push problems forward and not talk about way forward. Now, I mentioned transparency earlier. Now I'm talking about accountability. We understand that people question, leaders don't want to be questioned. They don't want to be, they don't want to have that very painful conversation as to what they do. Now, this one way to change this is the third point that I'm going to be talking about, which is participation. Are citizens involved before decisions are being made? I think I mentioned earlier that are citizens involved? Yes, citizens are being involved, but a particular, not all the time. Not all the time. Painfully, not all the time. Citizens are not usually always involved. Now, citizens participation in governance is something that we all need to look at and talk about it. As a person, as a young person in any African country that you are, I know the system has failed us. I know that we are heartbroken. I know that we have concerns. I know that, you feel like I can't wait to get myself and my family out of this country. But the thing is this, while you make all of those plans, why not actively participate? Either by, joining a political party, or at least the minimum you can do is to carry your voter's card and be part of the system. I'll tell you something. You make rigging an election, you make election very easy for the political class when you decide to stay at home. You make rigging so easy for them when you stay at home. I'm saying political class because one way or the other, I'm part of the political class. And I know that you make this whole thing very easy because some of you decide to stay back at home. Some of you decide, you say, okay, you know what? I've given up on the system. Interestingly, the political class wants you to give up on the system so that it makes everything easy. But in fact, they are counting on it. They are looking forward to you saying, you know what, next election, I'm not coming out to vote. They are counting on it. And they are hoping that you will not participate. Because whether you like it or not, you will vote. Maybe physical or somebody will vote on your behalf. Unfortunately, we've not been able to get to that point where electioneering, not just about Nigeria, not about Africa, even all over the world, we have not got, as a people, we have not got to that point where we say election is free and fair. Even, I think the last election in the US that brought in President Donald Trump, I think I saw an interview of, is it Kamala, where she was saying that the website was hacked, there was a malpractice, and I'm thinking, oh, okay, that is US that says that they practice democracy and looks like a perfect society based on what the American movie have been showing us. Interestingly, the US are also saying that there was election malpractice. So as a people, we are not a very good set of people. I heard something, I think it was Pastor Sam Adeyemi that mentioned. He said that if they tell, all right, so like he said, if they tell a bunch of thieves to decide who is going to be their leader, they are not going to pick a policeman. They will pick something that reflects what the society looks like. They are going to pick somebody that carries their culture, that drives their goal. So as a people, we need to change first. Because sometimes we think that we tell ourselves, you know what, we deserve some of our leaders. Because the tiniest things that you expect from people, you don't see. Something as simple as, let's stay on a queue while using an ATM machine, people will jump queue. And you will wonder why, something as tiny as just being civil, people are not capable of doing. So I will employ us that first we start to look at ourselves as a people. And there's something we also need to do. You know that you can actually track projects in your community. You can ask questions. For example, if a you know public we mentioned earlier when we're talking about law that you have right to public information, to public documents. Can you as a young person make conscious effort to say, you know what, I want to see the budget of my local government. Leave the people at the top. Let's start from the local. Like I want to see the budget of my local government for the year 2026. This is the amount allocated to education, road infrastructures, and this and that and that. Where is the funds? This is we are moving to the fourth month of the year. How far have they spent our money? What is happening? You know, you can ask questions, but people actually do not care. So because you believe that, oh, this gap is what, you know, you don't trust whatever is going to happen. The political office holders are hoping and counting on it that you don't trust. So that way you are not coming to ask questions. That way you say, oh, let them just be doing what they want to do. Whether you like it or not, they will make decisions that will affect you. In fact, they are making decisions that are affecting you, and you are complaining on Twitter, you are complaining on Facebook, on Instagram, when you can actually make conscious efforts. Nobody will fight you for asking for documents that pertains to road construction, hospital. These are public documents that you can pick up and track. You know, even at local level, you can engage in conversations. Even at local level, we have the legislative house of your local, local government and LCDAs as it relates to Nigeria. And you can go there. They also make bylaws and all of these things. You can ask questions. So please, I want to appeal to every young person out there that political class are hoping that you give up. The political class are hoping that you don't ask questions. Now, I'm not exempting myself from the word political class, but I am saying that I'm hoping that some of you will join us. I'm hoping that some of you will make conscious efforts into, just look at what governance is about and ask questions. Ask questions, pick up documents, question things. And that way, gradually, we begin to bridge the gap. Don't give up on your country, regardless, because we cannot continue to let the worst of us lead the rest of us. We need you. The country needs you. The future of your country needs you. Thank you very much. All right. Sorry. Finally, we will take the last dialogue session. And Mr. Michael, are you ready for us?
Yes, I'm ready.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Take it away. Over to you, sir.
So, good evening, everyone. And thank you very much for having me here. It's an honor to be part of this innovative and impactful initiative. I hope you can hear me. Can someone just let me know if you can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay, so I was speaking briefly on citizen involvement in health policy transparency and public service delivery. I'll start by saying Nigeria as a country does not have a health problem. Nigeria has a governance problem that shows up in health outcomes. And I'm going to frame it in three simple points. The first one is that health outcomes are shaped at different levels. Health outcomes are shaped at different levels. The second one is system fail when accountability is weak. And the third one is that, which is what I'm going to focus on because of my time, is that good ideas don't spread on their own. These 3 points are explained with, I plan to explain them with three problem-solving model and theories, which are social ecological model, principal agent problem, and diffusion of innovation theory. So I plan to explain the 3 points with these three models, but because of my time, I'll just focus on one. So what makes a health program effective is a theory-based planning, implementation, and monitoring. So planning
achieving an effective program, it's not just about just planning, implementation. Yeah, those things are good. Monitoring, they are important. Evaluation is important, but it's just like when the scripture said, "If the foundation be destroyed, what can the righteous do?" So like your theory-based planning, theory-based implementation, theory-based monitoring is very important. So I'm going to like talk about this theory that I want to use to explain the third point, which is that my third point, that good ideas don't spread on their own. So which is that the diffusion of innovation theory. It is one that explains how new ideas, practices, and technologies spread through population and systems. And it has five adoption stages, which are the innovators, the early adopters, the early majority, the late majority, and the laggards. The innovators are the they are the risk takers. So when there's a new innovation, a policy intervention that has been implemented. Maybe for example, let me say, because I work with the Lagos State Health Management Agency. So one of our initiative is like our major initiative is Ilera Eco. So we are pushing Ilera Eco, pushing for universal health coverage in Lagos State, Nigeria. So when people just say Ilera Eco, what's Ilera Eco? That's health for all, like that's an affordable health insurance plan for all Lagos State residents. Just hearing that, some people just some people want to just just they don't know what so Nigerians generally like free stuffs. So those are the innovate those are we call the innovators. The early adopters are the opinion leaders. That's the leaders that understand what's the benefits of the plan, and just and adapt it to their own to their policy, or to their own scheme. Yeah. So, and we also have the early majority. The early majority are the ones that are influenced by the early adopters, and we also have the late majority. The late majority are the ones that they are forced, and they were skeptical at first, but they were forced. For example, I made mention of this Ilera Eco, and I made mention of Ilera Eco. So yeah, so for example, I can say, okay, so recently the governor signed an executive order that all public servants should be registered under the Lyrical scheme. So at first, not all public servants were registered under the Lyrical scheme. So I believe, because of the executive order, that it is not important. If you don't do it, they won't pay you, you won't do this. So now a lot of people are coming around to get their lyrical health insurance done. So and this is and there's the laggards, the laggards, LAGGARDS. So ARDS. So these are ones that maybe because they don't trust their one of the reasons why this initiative was founded is to enhance trust of what's it called, to enhance how the community is going to trust the government. To get like, okay, like how do we enhance trust for the government? Like what do you do to so the laggards, like I was saying, they are people that they don't trust the government, and they don't believe what the government is saying, so they don't adopt the initiative. So like I said earlier, I said like Nigeria doesn't lack good ideas. We actually have working examples, and there are states, like I mentioned, that are doing well, like Lagos State. So the real question is not what works. The real question is, why isn't what work spreading? So that's where the division of innovation theory comes in. So I'm sorry, I'm rushing because our time is fast spent. So the definition of innovation theory explains clearly that it tells us that we don't just spread because we don't spread things because they're just good. Things are spread because they are spread following the right conditions, right platforms, and all. So, and that is where the citizen involvement comes in, which is the topic which I was given. So, the citizen involvement is not just about attending meetings or complaining about our poor services, or just sorry, I don't want to use the word ranting, but like just maybe because of the pain, we just speak on social media. I don't like this. I don't like what this government is doing. This is not right. That's it's not bad. It's not bad to do advocacy, and it's not bad to to fight for your rights. But citizen involvement, that's not citizen involvement. So citizens are actually the network through which ideas travel. Every time you share information, document what happened in your local clinic, or advocate for a better system, then you are part of that diffusion process. So the success of a policy intervention is not implementation, it is adoption. So what I mean by that is that the success of a policy intervention that is being implemented is not measured by the fact that it is being implemented, but the success is measured by its rate of adoption. that how many people are now registered to the initiative, how many people have now adopted your solution. So that is the status of your policy. So then he said, then I'm going to talk about how that community figures out how to hold their primary health care center accountable. Communities that communities that hold their, like, okay, about two colleagues on this call have mentioned how that you should hold your leaders accountable. When you hold them accountable, then they sit tight, they begin to sit tight, and they begin to make sure like that there are no errors, and you don't have the ability to call them out. So, and that's how transparency grows. Transparency is not just something that the government just gives; it expands when citizens demand for it. So transparency is to be demanded for. It's not something you just sit and just say they are working on the policies and no, no. Transparency is to be demanded for. So imagine when people start asking questions like, where is the budget going? Why is this facility not functioning? So it creates pressure for them, and that pressure increases service delivery, because one system know that they are being watched, behavior changes, then the facilities begin to improve. You will see that even what's it called, in some governmental sectors or governmental buildings, when you call them out, you see that they start to renovate the place. For example, the PHC reforms. So hello, sorry, my network went off. So I was saying, I was mentioning that. So sorry, my network is acting up. So as I was saying, I said an example of that is of someone that called out the government, and there was solution. Solution was, policies were made that that brought forth solutions. Was what's this guy's name? Apropos doctor. Like we all know now, he called out the government on how that about 30,000 PHCs are registered, and just 20% of them are active, and those active gone. Some of them don't even have drugs in place. Services are poor, and also, and and after then you can notice that there has been PHC reforms. So citizen involvement drives transparency, and transparency improves service delivery, and diffusion is what allows good practices to scale beyond one place. So, and I'd just like to just help. I would just like us to just take away. If we are not going to take anything implementation, one thing I want us to take implementation is that the success of a policy intervention is not implementation, it is adoption. So, and that is why I explain the theory, the diffusion of innovation theory. So please let us take that away. How that the success of a policy intervention is not implementation. So it's not just about having ideas or brainstorming and just implementing them. What is important is the adoption process. Like intentionally planning for your adoption process, and after your implementation, everything will work fine. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Michael. Thank you so much for that brief but very insightful, and I'm sure that a lot of us have had one or two things to pick from that. All right, so we are going to move to. We're just going to take two questions. The questions are more than two. However, considering our time, we will take just two questions, and we'll take just two questions. So the first one we will be. Oh, okay, yeah. So the first question will go to Mr. Olani Ayodele, and the question says, how do we move from awareness to measurable implementation? We've said a lot of things as in respect to the gap, and the main problem. We discussed problems, we talked about solutions, and so now we are talking about stepping up from talking about it to let us move to the field, and what do we go next? Where do we go next when it comes to action? So how do we move from awareness to implementation, to measurable implementation. At least let us start from somewhere. All right, over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Can you confirm if everyone can hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that question. And I'm really glad that question is coming just right after Michael just finished speaking, I believe. Michael Boulevard just finished speaking, because I will just take it from there, because the model, like the social intervention one, already talked about, like, implementation. And so all I would take from there after that would be feedback loop, right? But before I go to that, I would say first thing is, simply put, ownership, right? Most of the times when we have a problem and want to make it solution. In fact, this thing is said casually on social media, like in Nigeria, Africa, like everywhere, even in the West, different places, right? About how when there's a problem, the government says, we're setting up a committee to look into this, right? And a very good example that I'm going to give was when President Trump became the president and the tariffs started rolling out, started like eating like different countries and everything. Nigeria was hit hard. I think Nigeria was like hit like with almost like about 18%, which doesn't just affect the government, which affects private individuals like myself, like you and me, who do businesses with the US or any channels that have the US hands in it, right? Meaning there's like the cost of production, cost of buying, cost of everything goes up, even for the ordinary citizen who would want to buy an iPhone, right? So now, then the national economic, the name is failing me right now. They set up a committee that they're going to look at how this impacts Nigeria, and it's just dawned on me about 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago that there was never any report about that. There was never anything. And guess what? While I was checking, checking different places, Punch, channels, everywhere, like even trying to see, maybe they actually brought someone on politics today, to talk about it, like, okay, this is what has been done. This is how the effects of these things are being cushioned, not just on the big names, like who do businesses, like even on I know what my government here in Canada has done for me, following those tariffs, right? So nothing at all. So that is why I said ownership. We need to know that when these problems happen, we as Nigerians, as Africans, we have the surface level understanding of things, believing, oh, if something is happening to oil, the Strait of Hormuz, it only affects Dangote refinery. It only affects NNPC. Now we get to the gas, we get to the pump. Fuel was 900 last week. This week is 1,300. Then we see how it impacts us directly, right? So I think holding those who are in power, because honestly, we are against, everywhere in the world, we are fighting against serious, a consensus of elites. A consensus of elites. These are people who have the same education patronage. These are the same set of people who have the same social network, social class. These are the same people who have everything linked, businesses and so on. Like, for example, allegedly something came out yesterday about the real estates owned by the former Access Bank man, Abat Wigwe, right? I've seen a lot flying around the internet and everything about it. I can't take any stand firm position on it, but really, the things that people have been talking about, aren't we aware of these things, that politicians actually look at these businessmen and women who are doing really great for themselves, right, and funnel money into offshore accounts, buying properties everywhere in different places and so on, right? So we need to ask questions when they tell us this is what's when they tell us that this is what is being done. We need to ask, how exactly is it being done? Just one more thing. I know that I have very few, I have less than a minute to go. One other thing I want to talk about is specificity. Like, and this I'm going to draw from what Michael had said. When there is a problem, we need to be specific on what the problem is. It's not enough to say that we have 18 million out of school children. It is more about saying, okay, in this particular local government, for example, Ikere local government, where I'm from, in Ekiti State, there are 340 girls who are out of school, right? Is there any budgetary allocation to actually improve these children's these girls ability to actually return to classes? If yes, let us look at that. Who is the office, who is the agency, who is supposed to be in charge of this? Hold those who are supposed to be responsible. There are so many places who do it, that do it already in Nigeria. Enough is enough Nigeria, or different civic advocacy and organizations do that and everything. But as individuals, we need to actually call these people out. Yeah, it looks like, oh, you're being overly political, and no, people need to understand that seeking accountability is not you being overly political. And honestly, even if it is, you need to actually be political because your life depends on it. Our lives depends on it. So I'm just going to stop there. Thank you so much. I hope that answered the question.
All right. Yes. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir. So the second question is, can accountability restore public trust? Mr. Olani have said a lot about accountability, holding them accountable, and doing all of that. Now, can accountability restore public trust, and why is it difficult to enforce? Bringing it back to the African context, why is it difficult to enforce accountability? So to answer this question, we have Mr. Bia. Are you here? Mr. Bia, are you with us? Mr. Bia. So I need to confirm. Can you hear me? Mr. Bia, are you with us?
Yes, I'm with you.
All right, thank you very much. I'm sure you heard the question, right? All right, please go ahead.
Hello? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I hope you heard the question. Or do you want me to take it again? Now, accountability to stop public trust, and why is it difficult to enforce? Mr. B, can you hear me?
I think it's getting feedback. I think because I can still hear you speaking.
Oh, it's probably locked in on
YouTube. Can you hear me now?
Yes, can you hear me too? Is there a way you can reduce the other device? Can you reduce the volume of the other device? That is
okay.
I guess
if I got your question correct, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I can. I can hear you too.
Okay, if I got your question right, you're asking if accountability can restore public trust and why it is difficult to implement. First of all, I think that accountability can only restore public trust, when it is visible, when it is consistent, and when it is implemented at the grassroots, where governance can actually be felt, by the people. Now, it is not enough to just hold our leaders to account and, have them do the right thing. It's not enough for them to do the right thing. It is also necessary that they are seen, by the citizens to do the right thing. That's why accountability must, also be visible. And we as citizens, we must understand that the role of accountability, role of citizens, in holding public officials accountable is not a one-off activity. You understand? It is something that is continuous, just the way governance is continuous. Governance is not a one-day activity or a 4-year activity. It's something that is continuous and happens every day. So for accountability to actually restore public trust. I think it needs to be consistent. It needs to be visible, and the outcomes as well also need to be consistent, because we don't want a situation where Mr. A um, will commit the same crime, and then maybe he'll be um, allowed to go scot free, and then Mr. B commits that same crime, maybe because he's not a member of the ruling party. We see that there is a different outcome entirely. When it is Mr. B who is being held accountable, and that's when citizens start to see that the consequences of actions of public officers are consistent. That will now make them to trust the system more and engage with the system more. But I think that the reason why accountability is very, very difficult to enforce in Nigeria, first of all, is that we have weak institutions and strong personnel in government. That's why it's very, very difficult. For instance, we have the EFCC, which is meant to fight financial crimes, and to hold public leaders accountable. We see how politicians who are in the opposition are being you know petitioned and sent to court, and then also made to suffer at the hands of the EFCC, which is meant to be the watchdog. But once they cross over to the ruling party, all their sins will be forgiven. So you see that there is no consistency, in the consequences of actions for public officials. So I think that when these consequences are consistent, the citizens will begin to trust the system more, begin to engage with the system more. And if I'm to also make reference to my experience as a student leader in 2022, when we implemented a bursary scheme to cover, for the welfare of students in my area, that saw us, reach a partnership with the local government, the LML government where I come from, to provide a welfare scheme for students in my area. Now, we're made as student leaders, were made members of the committee to oversee the disbursement of those funds. Now, what we actually did, to make people that trust the process, and encourage them to register and participate, was that we made every process of that scheme, very visible and transparent to the public. There was constant communication, from the criteria that was needed for students, to become eligible for the scheme, from even when payments were made and people were asking questions that, okay, some persons were paid, some persons were not paid. We were constantly updating them, and answering questions, because even as public servants, even as we're serving the public at that time, we did not feel that we are bigger, than the people that we are supposed to be accountable to. We saw it as part of our responsibility. And I think that even when there is no public trust, even the most sincere, initiatives, the most sincere efforts of the government are met with, skepticism from the populace, from the citizens. So I think it is necessary for us, especially at the grassroots level, especially at the local government level, to see how we can implement accountability. And like I said earlier, when I spoke, I said it is the responsibility of citizens to hold the leaders accountable. Yes, there are mechanisms that have been made available by our laws, but we as citizens are the ones who actually give life to those laws. You understand? And I mentioned the Freedom of Information Act as well. That is a legislation that most Nigerians are not aware of. So if we can take advantages of some of these institutions, and then keep engaging with the system, even when we don't get the required results, that relentless effort is what will see us achieve the kind of country that we are hoping to achieve, and build for
Thank
ourselves
you.
and future generations. So,
Thank
so
you.
thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very, very much, sir. That was good. That was good. That was good. So yes, we all agree that accountability can restore public trust. Yes, it can be difficult to enforce, but we will enforce it because citizens will continue to engage. All right. I want to say today we've discussed governance, accountability, and public trust. We did not just discuss it as an abstract idea. We discussed it as a real tool for nation building. And the future of Africa and our individual nation is not just in the hands of leaders, in quotes, leaders, politicians, so to speak, because I believe that we are all leaders. It is in the hand of well-informed and engaged citizens. So if you want something from your country, you want your community to get better, you need to start engaging as a citizen. Public trust is not demanded. You cannot start demanding for it. It is built, and it is built when citizens refuse to stay silent and the system refuse, to stay in one place. Once again, I want to say thank you to everyone for being a part of this program. Thank you for listening to us, and I'm sure that you have learned one or two things. And thank you so much to Wave Nation for putting this together, and it's a privilege to be the convener of this dialogue. I want to hand over to Milka. Are you here? All right, thank you very much.
I'm here. Thank you so much for that engaging and insightful session. I've learned a lot. Like my notes, it's so full. We appreciate the depth of thoughts, the perspective shared, and the meaningful conversation that's taking place today. As we come to the end of today's program, I would like to express our sincere appreciation to our keynote speaker. Thank you for your powerful and thought-provoking address. To the Assembly Convener, Mr. Luani Femi, and the members, thank you for your insights and meaningful contributions. To everyone who joined today, thank you for being part of this important conversation. This conversation does not end here. Nation building is a continuous responsibility, and each and every one of us has a role to play. Let us let us live here more informed, more connected, and more committed to making a difference. Once again, my name is Miko Oluwafemi Afolabi, your favorite host on the Wave Community, and this is the end of today's session. Thank you. And before I go, I would like to leave up with this short phrase. It says, "A better nation is possible, and together we'll build it." Thank you so much for today, and have a wonderful evening ahead. So bye. Thank you for joining today's session. Bye.
All right, thank you so much. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Whoa, we are still in us.